Former US Vice-President Dick Cheney has died at the age of 84. He was widely regarded as one of the most powerful figures in American politics. Cheney served two terms under President George W. Bush, including during the September 11, 2001 attacks. His family said he died from complications of pneumonia and heart and vascular disease. To reflect on his legacy, we are now joined by former U.S. diplomat and international relations expert J. Brooks Spector. Jay, thanks for joining us. How are you this morning?
Good morning. Another cup of coffee will be just fine.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. It will do the trick. But thanks for your time. Always great having these catch up sessions with you as far as news
Sure.
concerning the U.S. Come to the fore. But today, sad news of former U.S. Vice President Dick Cheney. He was often described as one of the most powerful vice presidents in American history. How did he transform this role of a VP? And what made his influence so significant during the Bush administration?
Well, I mean, he determined that if he was going to take that role as vice president, be nominated, and then be elected, he was not simply going to be one of those people who traditionally had attended international funerals and gone to ribbon cuttings and basically standing around or sitting around waiting for the president to become ill or to pass away or to resign. But instead, he was going to form a partnership with the man who was his ostensible senior, George W. Bush, that they would govern, as some people put it, in a kind of co presidency. Dick Cheney obviously brought enormous amounts of Washington and international experience, much more than George W. Bush had. And as a result, Cheney did have a significant voice on most of the decisions that Bush made. It is also true that in his prior terms as a staff member in the White House during the Nixon administration, as Secretary of Defense, and on, he had gained this experience. He had gained a broad view of government and international relations, and he put it to its most expansive use, I think, uh, with the Gulf War, which welded together a coalition of 40 some nations to support the effort to remove Saddam Hussein's army from Kuwait after they had invaded in what was it, 1991. And unfortunately for Cheney, perhaps, the events of September 11th truly went to his heart, and he began, I think, to see everything through that lens. That is, that Iraq had its nuclear capabilities or was developing it. Iraq was a deep harm for the region more generally, and after the events of 9/11, the airplanes crashing into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, and then the one in Pennsylvania, um, Dick Cheney really sort of closed in on what he wanted to see happen. And the result was the second Gulf War, or the Iraq War, uh, which devastated Iraq, demonstrated the army could conquer Iraq, but left a legacy which was profoundly destabilizing to that country as well as the region. Um, Late in life, though, interestingly, very interestingly, late in life, he found that the attacks on the LGBTQI population, largely under Donald Trump, uh, hurt him deeply because one of his female children, uh, was gay. And as a result, he determined that he could not support Donald Trump. And in fact, in the last election, ended up voting for Kamala Harris, along with his daughter. And the legacy that he leaves is fascinating and disturbing at the same time. The way in which power gets used and the way in which power can ultimately be abused.
As you say, I mean, the 2003 invasion of Iraq, there, looking also back at his post 9/11 policies, he was often seen as chief operating officer in Bush's presidency. How did their working relationship influence key domestic as well as foreign policy decisions?
I think he limited his, I can't say limited, but he effectively, most of his energies were directed toward international affairs rather than toward the domestic scene, even though he had some significant experience in domestic politics. He was, after all, a congressman from Wyoming for 10 years. He'd been in private business for some years as well. He was well grounded and well rooted in his part of the country. He wasn't part of that, sort of homeless elite and ideas people. But I think he found his natural home, for good or ill, in the foreign policy, international affairs area. And as I say, the outcome was clearly a mixed one. Historians are going to spend a great deal of time dissecting and redissecting the actual fibers of his influence on George W. Bush, um, as well as the mistakes in interpretation and the mistakes in actual action that he caused to have happen. And we're thinking most obviously on the Second Iraq War, of course.
On the part that he was described as secretive, how much of that reflected reality? And do you think it had any effect on his leadership style?
He kept his. I think it's fair to say he kept his card in the old sort of gambling sense of the word. He kept his cards close to his chest. Um, but in his public statements and in the way in which he made his public remarks, I think he was fairly clear, even if he was sometimes misjudging the actual circumstances. Um, and he was caught out at least once on an issue, a complicated one, in which he accidentally revealed the identity of a Central Intelligence Agency analyst and operative in an effort to get that individual's husband to go and do something of a bit of analysis which was probably unnecessary. And in his remarks on the Iraq War, they were fairly public, but they weren't frequent, and I think that's kind of the difference. Mostly, he probably kept his counsel squarely aimed at the one person who really mattered in his universe, and that would, of course, have been the president, the man who, as Dick Cheney used to say, is the ultimate decider.
Brooks, we're going to leave it there for today. Thank you so much again for your insights. And go have that cup of coffee.
Thank you. I will. You take
That's it.
care.
Thank you so much. That's former US diplomat and international relations expert J. Brooks Spector sharing his insights on the life and legacy of Dick Cheney, former US Vice President, having passed away at the age of 84. We look back at his legacy. 7:30 Central